Hey everyone, welcome to High Heels and Hay Bales, the podcast where polished meets practical, legal meets lifestyle, and debt meets dirt.
I'm Kristen, your resident farm lady, keeping it real about motherhood, homesteading, and the funny side of figuring out life.
And I'm Adrienne, aka the Ladylike Lawyer. I'm here to help you make sense of money, debt, and the legal stuff without boring you to tears.
So kick off your boots or heels and let's get into it.
Let's get into it.
Welcome to High Heels and Hay Bales. Kristen, we are back today, and today we are talking about budgeting. Budgeting.
Ouch.
Yeah. A lot of people feel that way about budgeting. Why? We're going to talk today about why budgeting alone really won't save you. I think there's a lot of myths about budgeting, and we want to talk a little bit about the myth, that personal budgeting is really the thing standing between you and financial security. That's not necessarily true. And I think today we're going to talk about a few real reasons why people struggle financially, obviously without shaming anyone. And we're just bringing you this week's podcast episode with our signature mix of honesty, laughter, financial realty, and a little bit of sarcasm. Are we ready?
We are ready. Not to budget, but for this.
Well, you know what's, let me ask you, I know I've asked you this question. You generally do not have a budget, right?
No,
you don't have a standard budget.
I
Okay.
do not.
Unfortunately for our listeners, neither do I. It would probably be helpful if one of us actually was a successful budgeter, but neither one of us are. But let's pretend like we did have a budget. It's probably fair to say that people who do create budgets don't generally have, a busted water heater in their budget, right? A $600 vet bill in their budget,
No.
and now their groceries cost the same amount as rent. It's like, what? How do we keep budgeting when stuff is going up in price, right?
Right. And our incomes are not going up.
Yeah. So, the first myth, I think it's the biggest myth, it's the primary myth about budgeting, is that if you just try harder, you'll be fine. Like you're failing because you're not trying hard enough. Does that sound familiar?
Yes. And I can tell you it's a total myth because I have a farm that I make money with. I do social media stuff that I make money with. I started a farmer's market that I make money with. And I do a produce stand that I make money with. And everything I add to make more money, to try harder, nothing's doing anything to fix this.
Yeah. Boy, I feel that. Well, let me ask you something, Kristen. Where do you think this myth that if we just try harder, we'll make everything work? Where do you think this comes from?
Well, social media, big time.
For sure.
I know we've heard the teachings of one Mr. David Ramsey, who's, yep, I'm going to stop talking about that. Him, rich people that have never actually been poor. Those are a few that I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, I mean, when we're looking at social media, there's this belief that, everybody else has it together and everybody else is figured it out. We're just struggling. And if we just are smarter or try harder, we can be just like them. And a lot of what we see that they're doing is staged or, not really intellectually honest, right? And then we've got all of the Dave Ramsey type people. I'll just put them into one category, and that is a group of people who have ulterior motives in other ways, but are preaching, a faith-based moral obligation in this, and therefore, budgeting is going to be able to solve all of your problems and take you to the promised land.
I think a lot of the big problem with that faith-based approach is they're doing it for the money, not for their faith. I'm sorry. Maybe that's not the right thing to say, but if you're selling me a program, you're not doing it because God told you to do it. You're telling me because you figured out a way to make money doing this. And that's it. It's all capitalism. That's all this is.
Which is really shocking, because we know that Dave Ramsey and the people like him are going to make you feel bad and guilty and shameful and embarrassed, because that's what motivates you in order to buy their products, right? It's shocking to me that a lot of people just simply don't understand or don't recognize that a lot of people in that category, in that sphere, are not trained in finance or economics, and they certainly are not lawyers with the understanding of, how the legal system works. And so it feels very disingenuous in today's day and age to watch somebody preach to us about what we should be doing. A lot of times those types of leaders, thought leaders, or influencers, it oftentimes feels like they're kicking people when they're down. And that is just absolutely not helpful. And here, I mean, let's be realistic here. Budgeting is not going to fix wage stagnation. It's not going to fix rising housing costs. It's not going to fix the medical debt that we talk about regularly. It's not going to fix the ADHD decision fatigue, which is something that, is real, especially as more information is coming at us in this world, right?
Yeah. It's all, yeah. You said it all.
Well, let's first talk about what budgeting is, and when budgeting works and how it can work, right? I know you're like rolling your eyes because you're like, it's not gonna work. However, everybody does need to figure out how to live within a budget. We are living within a budget to some extent, because we have to figure out how to get through every month. A couple of things that we need to do. And you all know I'm a bankruptcy lawyer. And the very first thing I think anybody should do when they realize that they've got debt is to put paper to pen and write everything down and be able to visualize it. And that's hard. Like I would struggle with that. I struggle with that. Like, I don't want to look at it. And if I don't want to look at it, I can only imagine how much you wouldn't want to look at yours, or however anybody else would not want to look at theirs, right? But you do have to sit down, get out paper and pen, and you need to identify all your income, all your expenses, and you need to identify the time frame that income and those expenses occur in. And so here's a big problem a lot of people have, Kristen. How often is your husband paid?
My husband is paid weekly.
Okay. So a lot of people will say to themselves, okay, weekly, that's 4 weeks in a month, right? But there are not 4 weeks in a month. There's 4.3 weeks in a month. And so budgeting has to take into consideration, you either have to eliminate extra paychecks and use those as bonus paychecks for you and your family, or you have to be disciplined enough to parcel them out to the other months, right? I mean, that's number one, is just getting a handle on what your expenses, your income, and the time frame that you have. But you have to start there. It's just absolutely place to start. Do you know that according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, 90% of people are not paid like monthly, right? Like they're paid every other week, or they're paid weekly. So this in my practice, this is an issue, because when we sit down and look at people's income, and I'll say, this is how much money you earn a month, they say, no, I don't. I'm looking at, like, these are your base. I didn't make these up. No, I don't. And it's because we are averaging everything out, right? I wrote a book, and there's a portion of my book about budgeting. And if budgeting is possible, there are a couple of people who really can help you do it. And I'll mention them at the end. But the point here is you have to create a budget with the data that you have. And I really like Justin and Haley from Price of Avocado Toast podcast. Got all the socials and stuff. They're the ones that helped me write that portion of my book. And one thing that I think is really interesting about them, and I think anybody who's trying to get into the budgeting realm, they tried Dave Ramsey approach. They had inherited $600,000. And they blew through it all, and in another $225,000. At the end of like 3 years, they were $225,000 in debt and nothing real to show for it. And so they spent the next several years climbing out of that debt and creating a business. And the thing that I really like about them, and the reason I went to them to help me with that portion of my book, is because they're really value based, right? So many of these budgets are like money in, money out. But this is more of a value-based budgeting. They highlight people's values and what matters to them, and a budget is created around that. And I think that's really smart and innovative. And that is something that if people are trying to budget and they're struggling, Price of Avocado Toast is a great resource. And they kind of do things differently. The more common ways of budgeting is a zero based budgeting, identifying every dollar coming in and zeroing out and knowing that every dollar has a place to go. Some people use envelopes, that kind of stuff. I don't know how it works. I don't budget. I honestly need to avail myself to Justin and Haley. But once the budget is built, you have to track expenses throughout the pay period. That's the key. And of course, that is definitely the area where I would fall severely behind.
You know what would be very interesting? If each of us sat down with Justin and Haley, and each of us had them help us create a budget.
Oh my God.
To see
that would
how
be very
things
interesting.
think. It would be very interesting, even if we didn't share that on the podcast, because I don't know if I want to admit to this. But
oh my God, I'm thinking too, I'd be so embarrassed at all of the stuff I waste. As your friend, it would be hard for me to visualize how much money I piss away, knowing how valuable it is, honestly.
Oh yeah.
I mean, but yeah, I'm up for it.
Well,
I need to clean up my finances a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah, let's do that first. No,
before I let anybody in. See, I think that's what a lot of people do. That's why people don't go to coaches. That's why people don't go to lawyers. They think exactly the way that I just thought the moment you said that. I thought to myself, maybe someday, but not until I clean things up so it won't be so embarrassing. Right?
Exactly.
And I think that's probably, we just articulated a significant issue. I'm trying to push through this in my bankruptcy practice. I can obviously see how this would stymie people up. And we just witnessed it in real time. We got to get over that.
We do. And here's the other problem. And, for single people or people not in relationships where finances are commingled or just all together, I don't know. I guess commingled would be.
Yeah, that's a good word. That's a good fancy legal word.
I know. I like that word.
Yeah.
I think it's harder because there's time. Like I told my husband yesterday, I was like, we need to sit down and talk about a budget, because I don't know what we're doing. I don't know how this is going to work. My income has dropped in certain places dramatically, and there's a chance if TikTok does get banned, I'm going to lose an entire stream of revenue. And we just bought another vehicle, and it's summer, so the kids want to do stuff, and I'm literally crapping my pants trying to figure this out. And I'm like, we need to talk about this, but also I don't want you to see how much I spend on feed a week, because I need to order more, and I don't want you to know this, and so that also happens in relationships. I want to clean up my finances before my husband sees what I actually spend money on.
Yeah.
Because that's scary, even though it's not.
I completely agree with you. I sit here and I'm the same way with my own husband, right? I don't want another set of eyes on my crazy sometimes, right? There's a reason why I do well in this lane. There is a reason why I'm a good bankruptcy lawyer, because I understand the mindset of a lot of people who are in it.
Yep.
I feel the same way. It's hard to talk about money with even your spouse if you're shameful about the way that you're handling it. And I think everybody who's struggling is going to naturally have some shame about what they're experiencing. It's not, doesn't mean that it's warranted. They're going to have some shame about what they're experiencing. And the opening line of my book was shame lives in darkness. And when you're in the dark, you're literally in the dark. You don't have options. I love that idea of reaching out to them. And I want to say that there are several really good, I'll go ahead and say them now. There's several really good people out on the social medias. That's where we hang out a lot. I've met almost all of these people in actual real life. Justin and Haley I've met several times. They live out in California, but we've been at seminars together. There's also a woman out there. Her name is Alyssa Glutz, Glutz. She is at Color My Credit. She's got a website, Color My Credit. She
She's the
is,
one that writes it out in the
yes,
different
in all
colors.
the different colors.
I love her. I would like her to
Yes.
do mine, but there's not enough money for her to figure out what to do with it.
Yes. Yep, that's her. That's her. And there's another one who's really good. Her name, she's at Ash All About Money. We'll put those, we'll put those in the description and the information there. But these are really the three accounts, the three groups of people that I go to when I'm trying to figure out, or if I'm sending a client who maybe is not ready for bankruptcy or it's not suited for them, I'll send them over. I also think that when people are in a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, which is a repayment plan, those people have to live within a budget that is created for them. And I'm starting to refer some of my Chapter 13 people to people like this to help them stay on track so they can learn these important ways to stay on track. Again, I don't know how to stay on track. I just know that there's people out there who can help us do that.
Right. Well, when we obviously we know I filed bankruptcy. Before that, we have to take that debt credit or counseling crap. I don't know. Obviously, I paid so much attention. And thank God mine's gone, so I can say that out loud. But even with that, when I was putting all the data in and I was like, oh shit. Oh, this is uglier than I thought it was. And I was like, I'm going to get in on this. I'm going to do, and maybe this is part of the ADHD. I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to stick to it. And I was like, oh, I could go get this with the $50 that I have in my pocket. We're just going to do that first. We'll worry about the budget later. We're fine.
Well, I think you're segueing into the ADHD category of how people get drugged down on budgets. Because let's be very clear, executive function affects how we handle money. People with ADHD have executive function problems. All right, we need extra dopamine, right, in order to keep our brains focused. And it's a dopamine withdrawal. It's a lack of dopamine. And it genuinely affects the way we deal with, look at, or process the decisions that are made around money. And that's something that if you do suffer from ADHD and you are struggling with money, if you are on a roller coaster, there are things that you can actually do. Number one, you should be seeing a therapist. I mean, honestly, you should be seeing a therapist if you've got ADHD. I think so. I see a therapist
I'm in therapy.
at least to navigate it. Yeah, you're in therapy. I mean, we're big fans of therapy. You're laughing at me, but I mean, like, for real.
I'm
People
laughing
need
because
to understand their diagnosis and fair therapy is a privilege.
it is.
Therapy is a privilege, and I understand that.
I'm only laughing about the therapy thing because I mentioned to my therapist, by the way, I have ADHD. I got a diagnosis. She's like, finally. And that's all we've ever talked about.
Yeah. But I suspect that you're not talking a lot with your therapist about your money issues or your lack of budgeting, because if you were, this topic would obviously come up. And maybe Kristen, you need to open a new line of communication. But people with ADHD, we can feel like we've got everything set up, a great budget. And then by 10 a.m., on Tuesday, 2 days into our new budget, some little piece something cracks around the edges and we fall apart. We're not as good at, slapping our train back on the track. We can kind of fall apart and just completely abandon our program after a day and a half because we had a little setback. That's an issue with people like us. Fair.
Or something went on sale.
Or something caught our eye and promised us some dopamine, and we are addicted to it. I need it. Well, I think it's important that of course we need to remember to give ourselves grace. We talk about this a lot. Remember to put things in your badass file, right? I actually remembered to cancel a subscription. That is a good thing. You have to take the small wins and keep giving yourself small goals. Small goals. You writing this down on your hand? Small.
Yeah, I'm actually writing the subscription.
Yeah.
I'm not even kidding. I'm writing down that I need to call our internet provider and cancel the cable that we haven't looked at in a month and a half.
There you go. And let me ask you something. Is it an ADHD thing to write everything on your hands? I've been doing this my entire life, is writing things on my hands. People are shocked when I do that. It's just a piece of it's another opportunity to write things as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, no, I never have paper. I'm in my office, don't have paper. I do have paper, but my hand was right here and it's attached to me. It will go everywhere with me. This is why I can't write lists. Why a budget doesn't work for me is it's a list. And I put it down and I walk away. If it is not in my viewpoint, it doesn't matter.
That's called object permanence. And I just want to say that ADHD people really struggle with this. There's people who will help you organize your house that is consistent with ADHD. Do you know what the biggest issue is? Is we have to see it to know it exists and to remember about it. So open, everything hung up, everything where you can see it, anything we're diverting away, but you can see how people with budgets go off on tangents because they can't stay focused on their budgets, right? That's just a reality.
Because now I want to pay somebody to come organize my house, and I can't afford that. But I don't know what my budget is.
We need to pull back and go back. I see our ADHD is taking us off. We need to come back to the ranch. Okay. I want to say that there is another lady out there who I know. She's really cool. Her name is Gina, and she's at Saving Wiz Gina. And she's on TikTok. I'm pretty sure she's on Instagram too, at Saving Wiz, WHIZ Gina. She's got over 2 million followers, and she had about $100,000 in debt, and they paid it back. Her big claim is that it wasn't by budgeting, it was by learning why and how she spent, right? Like the psychology of why was she doing what she was doing. Now, Gina's not a psychologist or anything, but she has come up with really, really helpful tools to help you. Things like not spending as much, right? Like buying things in bulk and then cutting them down. And she walks you through and shows you how you take the steps to do it. And she's got there's five different types of spending personalities or something, right? Like, which one are you? So what I think we're learning here is that there's no one size fits all, right? And whenever anyone says, hey, just budget, right? That's a very complicated thing to throw out to somebody. And it would be, it looks very differently because of our values and how we operate in the world.
And I think, it looks different as well because of people's ability. Realistically, I have a general understanding of budgeting, but I can't wrap my head around how I'm supposed to say exactly what my budget is when every month my electric bill changes, every month my gas bill changes, every month my grocery bill changes, every month my income changes. So my brain is like, there's no way budgeting works because it has to change every month. So I can't figure it out. I know there's a way to work it. I know that there are people that can help me do it. But it goes back to that shame type thing that we really don't need to worry about. We need to get rid of, because asking for help isn't a problem. You know,
Do you know how many times I've thought about reaching out to any one of these people and they help me with a budget? And then I'm like, I don't want them to know how messy I am. They're my friends. Like, like, look, I don't
exactly.
want them to know how messy I am.
Right.
It's also, the motivation behind the spending and the whole psychology behind it. I was on a podcast with a woman by the name of Paige Pritchard, and she is the bomb. She is the Money Love podcast, and she's on all the socials at overcoming underscore overspending. She's got like 200,000 followers, because she talks about the psychology behind why are we buying, why, transferring emotions for things, right? Like, there's a lot of that involved. And so Dave Ramsey could never really comprehensively understand or empathetically, navigate somebody's unique situation and what matters to them. And I think that it's so important to acknowledge that we have to build these things in. I can tell you, I'm assuming that if you went to a budgeter, that they would probably say to you, you have to learn to live on what you can count on coming in. That's hard, right?
It is.
And then you would have piles for, excess income, anything that's excessive, that's not predicted monthly. I mean, I'm assuming that, but I think we're going to send you over to Haley and Justin. We're going to start with you. I think we should start with you.
That's dirty. That's dirty.
Honestly, if we just sent you, I mean, you don't even have to bring Jeremy along. He doesn't have to see everything yet, but I think that would be a really, really, really cool idea, honestly. And I think it would, allow our listeners, we can update them as we go along. But, I want this for you. I want you to be able to have some clarity. And the thing that I do recognize is that when there is a budget in place, as difficult as it might be, there is some comfort, right? Like, even if you can just see it and you know that it's miserably tight, at least you can see what it is, right? And you'll know where your problems are.
I know, obviously, I'm the ADHD person in my marriage. My husband is not. And the other day, I was so overwhelmed. I almost I did say out loud, I'm going to give you everything. You do it all. I don't want to do it anymore. I don't want it. It's too much. Because that's where I get. And I wonder if a budget would help, because it causes so much anxiety and stress. And I then get into emotional shutdown.
Yeah.
And I'm like, nope, you know what? Me and the kid, we're going to go to the European market, which I did yesterday. And we're going to go buy things to make stuff for the farmer's market so I can make more money. Like, that's how I'm fixing the problem in my head.
Sure. And and on the outside looking in, you're you're intellectually honest about that, and you recognize, and your therapist would probably tell you that, help you move backwards and find the trigger, right? Find the trigger. And then start working on more healthy ways to process, what happens when you get that trigger, those types of things. I mean, remember, budgeting is one tool. It's not a solution as a general rule. That's really the point of this entire podcast episode today. It's just really one solution. We all are struggling with this, and let's talk about things that actually do and can really be alternatives, or things that you can help, things that you can utilize as you're navigating through this. Obviously, bankruptcy, right? I mean, but bankruptcy is just an obvious option. And this is what I do daily. And in my practice and when I was in the New York Times, the whole concept is we try budgeting first. And the second thing we do is we go talk to a bankruptcy lawyer so we can get the full picture and clarity about what our options are.
Right.
So, debt relief, bankruptcy is a true, genuine, safe, and legal option. It is safer than a lot of options that people would ordinarily consider. Obviously, increasing income, right?
Yeah.
But as you said in the beginning, you've been increasing your income. You increase it here, you lose it over here, and everything goes up in price. And
there comes a point where if I were to say, okay, I'll just go get a full-time job that pays me $25 an hour, which still isn't really much anymore, which is crazy to say, I would have to pay childcare,
yeah,
which would eat up the majority of the income. And then I'd have to pay for gas, and I would be working for $3 an hour, which would be less than I make working from home running. Like it doesn't make sense. I think that's what screws up a lot of people.
sure.
Make more money, but how? My husband works 70 hours a week helping to make sure we are okay.
That's
When
a
his
lot.
over it is, and he's
A lot.
almost 50 years old. When the overtime dries up, because it will, our income drops. But he can't go get a second job. He's almost 50 years old.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
gets up at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning and goes to work all day and in a hot factory. Like, there is no quick fix for
There,
just
there,
increasing
there
income.
really is. And when anybody says increase your income, it is something you need to take into consideration, but it's not realistic for many people. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. It is a privilege to be able to have multiple jobs.
Yep.
I always get the men who are like, I just took on 4 jobs and got it taken care of. And I'm like, yeah, who was taking care of your kids?
Mm-hmm.
Who was doing any of this? Because we all know that somebody is doing this stuff. And if he doesn't have kids, then he's not normal and ordinary. His explanation doesn't relate to us. It's not transferable.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously things that actually can help are bankruptcy, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, if you could bring in more money, you would.
I mean, winning the lottery would solve a lot of problems.
Believe me. And a rich uncle passing away or the lottery would help most of us, I think.
Right.
But many people, I filed bankruptcy for people who've won the lottery. Because this stuff isn't natural. We don't all know. You're not born knowing how to handle money.
Mm-hmm.
And that is why people who get a lot of money, who don't start off, when you see basketball kids, stars, they come into a lot of money. There's a learning curve. You have to understand a whole different set of stuff, things that you would never even knew existed when you were living in poverty. And that's something that I understand. Well, the opposite, of course, is of increasing income is downsizing. It's cutting things out, and that's usually what people do first. I will say that in the increasing income / decreasing expenses, somebody like Gina, Saving with Gina, is very helpful because she helps give you ideas of how to save money on the things that you're like on your food budget, things here that are helpful that I sit and watch her for hours. Sometimes I'm writing stuff down. I'm 53 years old. I don't know all this stuff. She's got lots of good ideas.
And I'm gonna be the other side of the sword on this one.
Okay.
One of the things I have a problem with is, yes, I can save money with the food, but because of trauma from childhood, and I know this is one of my triggers, food accessibility was one of my triggers.
Yeah.
So as an adult,
you're a hoarder with food.
Almost, yeah, to the point where I have 2 freezers full of food. My refrigerator, like I opened the refrigerator and something fell out and I was mad. And then I was like, but I have stuff to fall out of my refrigerator, so that's okay.
There you go.
So I still spend $150 a week on groceries when I really don't need to. And that is definitely something that it's hard. That all of those things, I mean, man, if it was a perfect world, we would all not have to worry about trauma and the psychological aspect of money, and we could just figure it out and be fine.
Sounds like
it's not.
you have another thing to discuss with your therapist. You have a lot of insight, Kristen. I mean, you do have insight. You're aware, right? I admire that.
I just like to suffer.
I do want to also, I think it's important that we talk about and normalize receiving public assistance. It exists. It is there, you know, for most people, it is a temporary, you know, is a temporary fix. I want to be sure everybody understands that, you know, bad things happen and we find ourselves in lousy situations. And it's not helpful for anybody to, you know, put their knee on our neck and tell us all the mistakes we made. We just need to get out of the problem. And then we can go figure out how to not let that happen again. And I think, you know, getting public assistance is really probably very important in that role for many people. And I want to normalize that and make sure that people who are listening recognize that that's a reasonable and legitimate option in this day and age, right? And the last thing I will mention too that can kind of help a bit is going to be something that you've been doing a little bit, which is like bartering or, you know, asking for help, that kind of stuff. But you kind of been doing a little bit of bartering, and
Absolutely.
you've done it. You've done several of these things. You have started a farmer's market. In your first farmer's market was it last week or 2 weeks ago? Last weekend. Yeah. You just started the farmer's market. So you're trying to bring in a little bit of extra money, but also I didn't know you guys did this at the farmer's market. You guys all trade stuff and then you barter for services.
Yeah. So this actually happened at the end of the farmers. Well, towards the end, one of our bakers sold out almost completely. And she came over to me and asked if I wanted a pack of muffins and what I would trade for it. So we traded flowers for muffins. And then somebody else traded something. Like, I mean, it was all kinds of tradesies. It was really fun. I love that part of the farmer's market.
I love that too.
Yeah, it's a fun thing.
I've been to a lot of farmers markets, and it never occurred to me that at the end, after I was gone, everybody was trading stuff, and I love that. I don't know why that feels romantically delightful in my little brain right now.
It is. It's one of those little sweet pieces of that, and then on top of that, you know, I had several people wanting to become vendors while this was going on. So during the market, people were coming to me saying, "Hey, can I become a vendor?" and all that. And so I have a guy who, this is so random. He sells worm castings, which is basically worm poop.
Yeah.
And we were talking about the garden, and I was telling him about different stuff, and he's like, "Well, hey, you give me some plants, I'll give you 10 pounds of worm casting." I'm like, done.
Nice.
So yeah. And then instead of vendor fees for food trucks, I'm trading food. Like,
let me tell you
giving
something.
me food, and that was your genius idea. That was your genius idea.
Yeah. If you're in charge of something and you're the lead volunteer and you've got all the problems and all the anxiety and all of the work, then what you need to be doing is making sure that you're negotiating for some perks, right? Like I told you, when my husband was on the homeowners association, he was vice president of the HOA. And he was in charge of the snowplow contracts for our neighborhood. I'd be like, you make sure they get our driveway. And they always did our driveway because we were the one, you know, he was the one making sure that they did it. It was probably not fair, but you know, it is what it is. You get perks for stepping up and doing the hard stuff. My husband did a lot of stuff he didn't get, nobody thanked him for along the way. And this was just a perk. So if you're in charge of things, you should consider what perks are available to you. Right. I have started more so than any other time in my career. I am open to bartering. I've done a lot of bartering lately. And I'm not going to tell you what they are because I don't want anybody to say, oh, you know, that person must have been filing bankruptcy. But I've been trading stuff, and You know, it saves us both money. I still report it. I still
Oh yeah.
report it for tax
Yeah.
purposes through my firm. But you know, it's amazing. I'm getting some
And
services that I need, that my husband and I need, that I personally need, maybe that my paralegal needs, and we're able to get some bartering done. So I like that a lot.
it's very beneficial on any, I mean, that used to be the main method of transaction. I mean,
Yeah.
realistically,
Yeah.
bartering was the transaction
Yeah.
before paper currency, you
Yeah.
know? So we'll have people stop by all the time. My grandpa barters. I mean, it is a very natural thing. So that is something absolutely
Yeah.
100%.
Well, I just like the fact that you introduced me back into that concept, because honestly, I hadn't really thought about doing some barter until we started talking about it on one of these podcasts. So look, we're both growing as a result of this, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
um, you know, we've been talking about why it is budgeting won't save you. Um, you know, there comes a point when there's just nothing left to budget, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there is a difference between budgeting to survive and budgeting to thrive. I would
Right.
say that I need to figure out how to budget so I can better thrive. It sounds very much like you need to get into a budget so that you can survive right now. That is a primary concern, and so I think that that's a really it's a good it's an important juxtaposition for our followers to hear, is that budgeting, I'm not a good budgeter, but doesn't it's not the same consequence to me, right?
Right.
My messiness is easy to ignore,
Right.
and that makes it almost worse in some ways, but it also reminds everybody that, you know, my ideas, the things that I would do to budget, are easy for me to say
Mm-hmm.
because my needs are being met.
Right.
And when your primary needs are not all being met, budgeting becomes a joke.
Yep.
And, you know, bankruptcy is an option. A lot of people will turn to borrowing more money. And I want to urge people not to do that. If you are struggling with debt, if you're struggling to make ends meet, you start with trying to budget your way out. If you cannot sit down with paper and pen and get yourself out in 3 years or less, you need to talk to a bankruptcy lawyer, because the other things you're going to try to do are probably not in your best interest. We don't want you to go borrow more money, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we don't give alcohol to alcoholics.
Mm-hmm.
Borrowing more money just makes the problem worse. It doesn't really change anything.
Which this just made my brain, as you said that, you know, with the different bankruptcies. Obviously, our Chapter 7 bankruptcy wiped out all the debt that was killing us.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Because we qualified financially for it.
Mm-hmm.
Chapter 13 would have forced us into a budget. And I sometimes, just in this exact moment, I'm wondering if that wouldn't have been a better option.
Well, I will tell you that you always take the Chapter 7 when you
Well,
can.
yeah.
Okay, but I will also say to you, as your bankruptcy lawyer, I created a budget for you. We have a budget that was
Yeah.
created inside your bankruptcy. What we need to do is you need to pull it out and look at it.
Do I have a copy of that or
That would
something?
be a good start. I will send it to you. I will send it to you. I will
I
send
can
it to you.
tell you
That is,
it's.
ironically, I have to create a budget for every single client that comes through my office. Hundreds
I
and
didn't
hundreds and
know that.
hundreds. Oh
Did not.
yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, you tell us what you spend on stuff, but I know what you should be spending, and so, you know, we generally check them. But oh yeah, every one of your expenses is identified in your bankruptcy,
Well, not
and
anymore because all that crap changed.
that's the point. And if you had been in a Chapter 13, it would have all changed too.
Yeah.
And that's why you need somebody like, you know, like Ash All About Money, or Alyssa Glutz, Color My Credit, or Haley and Justin Brown Woods from Price of Avocado Toast, because those people can help you understand the fluctuating budgets and what you do in those situations. right?
I need them.
Yeah, you do need them. I'm gonna text Justin and Haley right when we're done here because we're getting you enrolled.
Oh
We're
man,
getting you enrolled. We're gonna do it.
I'll be the guinea pig for
You're
us.
gonna be the guinea pig. You're gonna be the guinea pig. And I think that if you push through the hard stuff, I think that you're gonna be glad that you did. And I know that I know myself and all of our listeners are gonna be glad because we want to watch this train wreck as it unfolds.
Oh, train wreck. Yep.
I'm teasing. This is going to be your salvation. I think this is going to be your salvation. But whatever it is, whether it's your salvation or a train wreck, we're going to be along to watch. How's that?
I mean, no matter what, even if it is my salvation, it's going to be a train wreck the entire way.
Yeah. That's
a fun. I live in a fun, dichotomy. Everything's a train wreck, but it comes out real nice.
Well, just remember, cutting out lattes aren't going to fix systemic problems, right? We gotta triangulate all of our options.
I'm thinking we need to change it from cut out the Starbucks to cut out the DoorDash. That's more relevant these days, I think.
Yeah. That's fair. Again, remember, I live in the middle of nowhere and we really don't have anything to DoorDash. So it's just not in our lexicon really here. But anytime I'm in a big city, people give me DoorDash gift cards all the time. And so whenever I'm in a big city, I get to use them and it's delightful. But yeah, I mean, for me, it's still the Amazon and the, I know it shouldn't be, but it's the TJ Maxx's. I just love clothes. I love clothes and plants. I love clothes and plants. I'm clothes and plants. And I've got shit sitting in my cart right now. Because I need a moss pole for that guy and I need a new plant hanger over there. Like, I'm obsessed about it. It's the last thing in the world I need to be worrying about right now. I've got more things than I know what to do with, but my brain is like, when I'm done here, I need to go look for that hanging plant thing that will go perfect right there. That's the last thing I need, Kristen, but it's how my brain is operating.
Well, as I have a 150-foot hose in my cart that's like $80. I don't necessarily need it, but it'd make my life a little easier. I've also been checking the market report for the produce auction because I need to know what things are selling for when I go down Friday.
Are they going up?
No, it's going down. Last Friday, a flat. So this is insight into my life, and this is a huge friggin' problem because I have to budget. Doesn't always work. My purchases at our Amish auctions. So until my produce comes in, I go to our Amish auction. Everything is grown in Northern Ohio, and I purchase produce to sell at the farmers market.
Right.
It's kind of a workaround.
I'm pretty sure a lot of people do that, right?
Yeah, a lot of us do.
Like until their own produce comes in, you're selling produce that you buy. I learned that from the local peach orchard many years ago.
Yes. So I forgot what I was saying. So
you were at the auction.
Yeah, last Friday. And right now it's strawberry season. It's like green onions, garlic scapes, like very, very low amounts of food, produce. Flats, which are 8 quarts in these specific sizes. So there are 8 of those little green bundles. We're going for $45 to $65 a single flat, which would mean if you were going to resell, you were going to have to sell one single quart of strawberries for $12. Wow. To make a profit. Just $1 profit.
Just to make $1 profit.
Yeah. And you were going to have
they were $11 each.
Yep. And you were going to have to buy multiple flats. So if it was a stack of 3 or a stack of 5, you had to buy all of them. So you were spending anywhere from $65 to $400 and some on a stack of strawberries. Okay, so fast forward.
All hoping that you make $1 return on them. And if anything falls off the truck or gets smushed or
goes bad,
has some mold in it, you're out like $11.
Exactly. And,
Yeah,
but
I mean, it's
anyway,
not.
so,
Doesn't
so
stop my husband from eating all the non-white pieces and non-white berries. I
yeah,
am very picky and would be very unlikely to eat anything out of there if I'd seen
yes,
mold. But
same.
it's also privilege. Again,
Mhm.
I'm privileged to be able to say I don't want that strawberry. I want a
Well,
better one.
I would do the same, and I'm poor.
Okay.
But what I was going to say is this: I just checked the market report for this Monday, and flats of strawberries were going for $16.
Wow.
So it's a huge difference a weekend makes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know what it's going to do on Friday. I have no idea.
So
So
that
I
went
have to
down.
go back.
So the price went down. So it's
Yeah,
more
but it could
affordable
go
now.
up today. It could go up today.
But what this also tells me is that when you have produce to sell, that it's going to be very difficult to figure out what it's going to be worth.
Exactly.
So I see the
So
problems.
I bought a box of onions. There was 20 bunches in the box, and I paid $2.50 per bunch,
Mm-hmm.
which was stupid in my opinion, but I did it anyway. I sold them for $3.50. I
Yeah.
only have 2 left. So I did good. But again, it was only $1.
Yeah. You only made $1.
However, I made $1 on 250 instead of $1 on 11.
Right. Right. The scale, the economy of scale, and what you had to what you had to pay for it. Yeah, I get it. Well, Kristen, I think that you're doing the very best that you can in terms of trying to bring in the side hustles, and you probably could work a little bit on where you spend your money, but at the same time, I give you a lot of credit, I admire you a lot what you do with what you've got. And that is a truthful statement. It is a truthful statement that I'm very proud of you, that you do what you do with what you've got.
It's hard. And I
Yeah.
don't know, you say you're proud of me, and I'm like, I don't know if there's anything to be proud of, because
You got to remember to take the compliments and write them down in your badass, right? From
true.
my perspective, what you're doing is very hard, and I can see how difficult that is, and I just want to say I admire you because you're plowing through it, right?
Appreciate that.
You are welcome. So budgeting alone is not going to save you. That's very clear. If you try harder, you're not necessarily going to figure everything out and be on, have financial freedom. It's not just about trying harder. And it's just very, very difficult to budget when there's simply nothing there to budget, right?
Mm-hmm.
So some actual things that people can do to start helping to mitigate these problems are to consider talking to a bankruptcy lawyer, right? Conveniently, you can follow the link in our in our content. We got links there to help pair you up with people who offer bankruptcy services. But that's just one thing. Obviously, increasing income is something most people have considered, but you have to really balance it with burnout, right? There comes a point where it's not worth it, and it's important to understand that. The flip side, downsizing is really, I'm talking to a lot of people who are trying to keep houses and cars that they really cannot afford, and being honest about where you can downsize is important, right? But I want to make sure we're normalizing public assistance, barter, that kind of stuff. But if you there's always room to be doing better with figuring out what to do with what you have. That is budgeting.
I do have one more option that
Ooh.
could be helpful. I just thought about it. And this isn't very far-fetched. Sugar daddies.
Oh, I love that idea. I
I
love
think
that idea.
I think it's my next step.
I've had a few reach out to me in private messages on TikTok. I ignore
too.
them. However, if the right offer came along.
I've actually posed this to my husband. I'm like, hey, listen, what if I can find a diabetic daddy?
Yeah.
Doesn't need any sugar, just gives me money.
Yes, a diabetic daddy. I think you just coined something new, Kristen. I like it. Instead of a sugar daddy, a diabetic daddy. All he does is give us money.
Yeah, I'll take 7 of those.
Oh man, I am in.
I'm in too. But yeah, I think these are all fantastic options and a good plan to start on how to help people with their budget. And remembering, don't be afraid to talk about it or look for help, because there are people that can help you. And even though it's shameful, if you don't fix it, it's going to get worse.
That is important to remember. Doing nothing doesn't solve the problem. Doing nothing only makes it worse. Staying in the darkness only makes it worse. You got to shed light on the problem in order to fix it. That's really what we actually started this whole thing out, right? We don't want our friends to see our budgets. We don't want our spouses to see our budgets, and we have to probably start there. For the listeners this week, I've got a challenge for them. Look at your budget, right? If you've got one, try to sit down, put paper to pen, and do a loose budget so you have a general understanding what's going on. And I'm going to give you the task of circling the one thing that's completely out of your control. Give yourself permission to stop blaming yourself for the one thing that's just completely out of control. Not your personality, girl. That is always out of control, right? Just give yourself permission to stop blaming yourself for something that you really cannot control. Start there, number one. Number two, write down one thing, just one thing after listening to this podcast episode. Write down one thing you can do that gives you just a little bit of breathing room, and start with that one thing first. We have all the resources, all of the people that I've referenced in this podcast will be linked. We'll have links available for those people. And we encourage you guys to submit comments about your budgeting fails or wins, right? What do you think, Kristen? Are we going to get some good intel from our followers?
Yeah, I would like to hear some folks' wins, but also ideas. I would love to hear it.
I would love to hear people's ideas as well. People who are similarly situated and are navigating this chaotic world like you are, like I am, but more so like you are, because, really, honestly, that's what we're trying to do here, is to try to understand the differences so that people in my situation can see that, just, not being able to buy, a golf cart isn't necessarily a problem, right? And there's a lot of people in my orbit who feel like they've got money problems, and those people are very quick to tell other people what they should be doing. And that really goes back to, wealthy people who've never been poor. Don't ever take advice from those people. They don't know how to become successful if they've never been destitute.
Right.
They really don't. It happened. They had a lot of things in place that helped them get to where they're at. And so be cautious about taking advice from people who were born with a silver spoon in their mouth.
Absolutely. I was not that person, so you can trust me to probably jack up your budget.
There you go. There you go. Well, everybody stay tuned, because I am going to reach out to my friends, and we are going to get Kristen enrolled come hell or high water, and we are going to probably keep you appraised of that as we go along, and we'll do an update in a couple of months. We'll do an update after you talk to them, and then we'll do an update a couple months later. How's that?
That sounds good.
Yay! All right. Well, until then, we are going to sign off. We will see everybody next week, where we're going to just come back here and do this all again with a different topic, because this is actually kind of fun.
It is. I'm kind of liking this. We're doing it.
We're doing it.
All right. We'll talk to everyone later.
All right. Have a good time at the farmer's market this week.
Yep. Have fun running, because I'm not going to do that.
I haven't run in a while. I need to do that.
All right.
Catch you later.
Thank you so much for hanging out with us today on High Heels and Hay Bales. If you laughed, learned something, or just had a good time, make sure to follow wherever you listen.
And don't forget, we've got even more for you. Head over to highheelsandhaybales.com and subscribe to our newsletter for exclusive behind-the-scenes content, bloopers, and tips you didn't even know you needed.
You can also connect with us on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. Send us your questions, funny stories, or topic ideas, and we'd love to hear from you.
Until next time, stay grounded, stay laughing, and stay out of trouble. Well, mostly.
See you next week.